All right, we should now be live on Facebook. Hey, Facebook. Apologies if we're a couple of minutes late. I was broadcasting in the wrong group. Obviously, it was done on purpose to make a point, which I'll have to make up on the spot. We are, of course, both professionals here. And if you're online, please just give us a wave, say hello, let us know that you're here. I'm really looking forward to this webinar tonight. Caroline and I set this up. It seems like a long time ago. It seems like months ago.
It really wasn't, but it feels like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. It feels like such a long time ago. And I was thinking, oh, September, eventually that'll come around and eventually we'll be doing this. But here we are. Here we are this week. Okay, lots more people joining us now. So yeah, if you're online, just give us a wave, say hello, let us know you're online. Hey Helen, hey Sundance, great. We've got some people joining us, so we won't be just speaking to ourselves. We haven't got an agenda for tonight. This is a really open conversation. Normally I have a topic. I might create a topic after we've finished this to kind of fit it in.
Sure.
But we've got a ton of coaches. I know a bunch of people are watching us right now. A lot of people tend to watch us, on the replay. This is streamed directly into the group that I run with. I don't know how many members we've got at the moment. We have 827 members as of today. So what I was thinking is if we'd have a little bit of a conversation, I will maybe ask you a little bit about yourself, what you do, because I think there are some people in the group who don't know who you are and don't know your background.
Sure.
And then maybe we'll open it up to some questions. And hey, Nicholas, hey, Steve. So we've got a few people joining us more. What I'll do is I'll start with this. So I met Caroline. Well, I heard of you first. So I think most people in this group know that Steve is my coach, Steve Chandler, and he's been my coach for a number of years now. And so I heard of you, as I know he's also been coaching you for a number of years.
Long time.
When I started, you were just asking me before we hit the record button that I've just come off doing an immersion event. And I remember when I started doing those, Steve told me, well, I've got another client and, she's really good. I know you used to work with Michelle Bauman and how both of you were really great at filling groups for women. Mm-hmm. And he sent me an audio about it, which was so helpful in my very early days. This is going back, 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Around, what other coaches did. So I feel like even though this is the first proper time that we're having conversation, even though we met briefly in Steve's school, I think a few years ago.
Yes.
I feel like I've known you for a very long time and I've been learning from you for a very long time. So it's a great honor to have you with us.
I'm thrilled to be here, Ankush. I mean, obviously Steve's talked about you lots and lots, and I've seen you like at his school, and I see just from seeing you on Facebook and hearing about you from Steve, how much you have, grown as a professional coach, serving more and more people in your world. So I'm thrilled that we get to connect. And I also know that Steve and his wife came to your wedding, right?
They did.
And I heard great things about your wedding.
Steve has bribed me not to share footage of him dancing and enjoying himself at the wedding. This is a true story. There's not much footage of Steve at my wedding, but I went and told the videographer to re-edit the video to make sure he was in the video because there's like a very short clip of him dancing. So
I love it. So yeah, that's our history. So would it be helpful if I talk a little bit about me and my background?
Yeah, I think it would be really helpful because, you've talked about me really growing, but I can imagine that you weren't the coach you are today when you started out. And I know when I heard you speak in Steve's school, you really talked about your journey. So maybe that would be really useful because there's a lot of people who are, earlier on in their coaching careers in this group. So it'd be great to hear kind of where you were, what the journey's been to where you are right now.
I would love to share that. It's it's a good story too for anyone who's here. It's like, my coaching career started very small. I coached 2 people And my background for like even wanting to coach came out of my education at the University of Santa Monica. So I earned a master's degree in spiritual psychology back in 1998. And I had no intention of becoming a coach. I ended up at the university because I was frankly searching, like, what am I going to do next? I worked in marketing and I wasn't happy. And I had a lot of places in my life where I wasn't happy, truly. And something wasn't working. And somehow I ended up at the University of Santa Monica through a lot of grace and randomness. And this education changed my life in profound ways. It's a highly experiential program that is really designed to help people ask questions like, who am I? Why am I here? What am I doing? What do I want to do? So that was profound for me to be in an educational experience where I got to look at all that and ask those questions. And that started to like become this thing of like, I could do that with people. That was shocking that could be a career and it took a long time for me to get there. So I graduated and I ended up working at the University of Santa Monica because I was so struck by the education. I thought, I got to see if this is like for real behind the scenes, right? Do they really live this in the way they teach it? Because it's a small organization. So I ended up working there for 12 years as the director of marketing and then the director of admissions and then the head of admissions and marketing. But in that time, I started to do a teeny bit of coaching on the side, like 2 people as pro bono, as part of a project I did. And I liked it. And then I met Steve Chandler, and in him becoming my coach, I hired him to become my coach because I was dissatisfied with some of the things happening in my work. But when he heard I had coached, he was like, whoa, 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 what do you mean? And I said, oh, I've coached 2 people. He's like, well, why aren't you doing that? And I said, well, I couldn't really imagine, Ankush, that this would be a profession I could do full time and thrive financially. That wasn't even a real thing. I didn't know people did that. And so our relationship began and he became my coach. And then I started to coach more in my work at the university. So it became more of a real thing that I did in my work with enrollment because I was enrolling for the University of Santa Monica. That's really my first experience, Ankush, of learning how to enroll, was enrolling people into this education that I believed in so profoundly. And then I'll fast forward a little bit so it won't get too boring. I met Michelle Bauman, who became my business partner and my best friend. We met at the gym. Long story short, she was a lawyer. She was dissatisfied. She was sort of intrigued by me, like, who's this person I'm working out next to who actually seems like she's fulfilled in her life? Do people really, are they fulfilled? Is that a real thing that occurs? Because she didn't know what that meant. She's like, I'm a lawyer. I have 2 children. I have a house. I'm done, right? Like, I'm done. And I sort of was like, done? What do you mean done? Like, there's so much more. And that began this very deep, rich conversation between us. And our friendship began. And then she applied to the University of Santa Monica. And then she was really the one who was like, I'm not going to be a lawyer anymore. No, no, no. I have found my calling. And I thought, oh my gosh, like, she's going to do this. Maybe I want to do that. People do that? Like, they just become coaches? And long story short, she said to me, hey, I want to do a group. You're the only person I would want to do that with. Would you do that with me? And even though, Ankush, I had lots of experience enrolling into somebody else's thing, right, my university, I had not really done a lot of enrollment on behalf of myself. And Michelle was the first person I met who something moved inside of me to say yes to her. I had done facilitation in other ways, but she was so enthusiastic that I thought, I can't say no to her. She's so fun to hang out with. Let's just try it. And that was the beginning. And Steve, the mainstay of that was having a coach who kept saying to us, yes, you can do this. Yes, here's how you do this. Yes, talk to people. get into conversation. I mean, it was very slow. It was a slow build. It was called, we're terrified. I don't know. How does this work? And then over time, we just did it and got messy and made mistakes. And all of a sudden, Michelle was saying to me, I'm going to leave my job. We did it all on the side. Like we had these full-time jobs that were very demanding. And then on the weekend, we would do our groups. And I would coach people at night on my bathroom floor. Literally, I had a 1-bedroom apartment and I talked to my clients on my bathroom floor. And I started to get like another client and another. And then all of a sudden it was like, are we going to leave our jobs and do this? So it was there was no real like path other than we decided to forge it and go, oh, let's clear a bush here. Oh, wait, there's a big rock. What do you do with this rock? Let's ask our coach. Oh, we're scared. What do we charge? Oh, we knew nothing. Is that helpful?
It's really helpful. So, this isn't someone who, yeah, I had a job, I did a coaching course, and then I was making $100,000 in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
This is a journey that how long did it take you to go from, the first client you had to leaving your job?
That was probably, Steve would tell you, I stayed at my job way too long. I mean, he was pushing me to the point of like beyond directive. He was like, are you going to give your notice? What are you doing? Probably 5 years. Maybe a little less. Maybe it was 3.5, but it was at least 3,
right,
if not 5. And then I was sitting like then it was like, wow, I had my whole day to devote to this. And I was still terrified.
So your journey is really interesting, and I couldn't stop myself because I wanted to make a couple of notes. So one thing that you said was, this was like you start off doing this as a side business, right? And one thing I see, and this is a coaching community specifically for 3 principles coaches, but
Yes.
I think coaching is coaching.
I agree.
And one thing that I did was I kind of coached for the first 2 and a bit years, whilst on the side, in my flat, in my bedroom, before I went full time. And I felt that really helped me because I then had my income coming in from my job to invest in my training and my coaching, and there was less neediness because I had an income coming in. And then I got to the stage where I was like, okay, I can see this is working out. And then
Yes.
I quit. And I talked to an awful lot of coaches who, and I met a coach when I first started out a few months in who said to me, no, you've got to burn your bridges, you no turning back. And I had people say to me, just quit your job, just go for it. And I think that I was really glad that I was at the time, my person I was training with, Jamie Smart, said to me, you can burn your bridges, but you can also just build your next bridge first. So would you say that that was really useful to you to kind of have it as a side? And is that something that you also share with coaches or not?
It is with any coach I work with. And, just to give some additional context here. So, Michelle and I started to do these groups, which got traction, and we each had individual clients. And then we started coaching coaches because, look, I had spent 12 years really learning enrollment and becoming a student of Steve's. So he very naturally said, look, you can help coaches. And then we had our own groups for coaches, and then myself, Steve Chandler, and then another coach, which you may know his name, Ankush, Stephen McGee, and Michelle, we all developed the coaching program at the University of Santa Monica. So we led the coaching program for University of Santa Monica grads who then wanted to take this education and become coaches. And I am so grateful that I did not burn bridges. Michelle was really never going to burn a bridge. I mean, her joke was like, she was so risk averse. The idea of burning a bridge was never even something she would consider. And that wouldn't have worked for either of us because, look, I was married. I had a young child, my daughter, when that conversation began, when I left my full-time job, she was probably 3. So I'm not married to someone who's uber wealthy who I could just sit around and eat bonbons. My income mattered in our family, as did Michelle. So I'm grateful that I could build a bridge into full-time coaching. I'm not a fan of burning bridges. If people do it, great. Like if it works for you, but I agree with you. It can be very stressful if you're relying on making it happen quickly. I'm grateful for the slow transition. Steve said to us, and I still remember this, Ankush, let your coaching drown out your day job.
Yeah, I love that. I remember Jamie said to me, you're buying back your time. You get to a certain stage where if you're doing this on the side, you run out of time, and then you're buying back your time. It's like, well, if I stop doing this, I'm buying it back because I want to invest in my business.
Exactly.
And that was a real big reframe for me.
Isn't that great?
Absolutely. Now, I've got so much stuff I want to talk about, but the thing that keeps coming up for me, and I've got a little bit of a lump in my throat, but I want to say this, right? One of the things that I say to coaches, and the reason why I do this group, and the reason why I've created all this content and I put so much heart and soul into it, is not for the money. The reason I do this is because of the impact of coaching and how it changes lives. And for those people who don't know, Michelle passed away a few years ago. I never met her. I heard her on audios. I've heard you talk about her. I've heard Steve talk about her. And to me, that is the impact of coaching. That someone who's no longer on the planet still impacts me.
Yes.
Still changes my life, beyond the grave. And
Isn't it amazing?
It really touches me. And so what I see is that, what you're talking about, what I'm talking about, this isn't about, hey guys, do what we're doing because you guys can get rich.
Right. No. No, because this is not, I love this profession, but it takes work. It was a journey of love. It's the only reason to do it is the love of the work, the love of the actual experience of being with someone in their lives and assisting them in their own transformation. There's no other, to me, it's the greatest profession. And that's what makes it important, not the financial gain. Although I'm someone who is a voice for coaches that they can do well in this profession. This is not a profession you have to struggle, and it can be a profession where you can thrive, but it's really the joy of the work, right? It's the joy of what happens. And look, I was very blessed that Michelle and I met. It was an extraordinary friendship. And the fact that we could work together and create this amazing body of work together was amazing. But her role in my life, she would say this all the time, and the same is true for me. She was a huge source of transformation for me. I mean, Steve was our coach, but I got tons of coaching from Michelle. And her legacy lives on in me, and I'm so grateful. And her words, and I so appreciate, Ankush, that you said, oh, her words impacted me. Like they made a difference for me. And I agree. This is a profession. The only reason to do this profession really is for the joy of the work, because it does take effort. It's not a one and done. It's all easy.
Yeah. And I see a lot of marketing out there around coaching being effortless, sign up to this thing and you can make this much money in such a short time. And for me, that's misleading, because like you say, I think just like you, coaching it's the best thing I've ever done with my life. It's the most satisfying work that I've ever done. And in terms of effort, it's probably the thing that's taken the most effort of anything that I've ever done. I enjoy the effort, and
Exactly.
This is the thing. Effort's not bad.
No.
But I think there's I remember speaking to someone years ago who told me they wanted to be a coach, but they were, a full-time mom, which is fair enough, and and this lady said to me, I've got 4 hours I've got 2 hours on Wednesdays and Thursday afternoons to build a coaching practice. And I said, look, you can do it, but it's going to take you a very long time. And, it's unlikely because it does take time. It takes effort. It takes energy. And it's worthwhile at the end. But I think it's really important to be honest about that up front.
I agree. It's not Michelle used to say to people, this is a profession. It's not a lifestyle.
I love that.
Right. This is a journey of learning and working. And I like working. So I loved growing my business. I liked the nuances of learning enrollment, and it's never ending, as you know. So I love that I can make a mistake today, still.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of brings me on, to my other question, which is, how long have you been working with Steve for now?
Oh gosh. I kid him. I think I have the longest running coaching relationship with him. I mean, he's been my coach easily for over 13 years, probably pushing 15, Ankush, if I really look at the numbers. I don't always like to, but that's my joke. Like, my joke is that when I'm like, at your service, I just want it to be really clear. I get first dibs at getting up and sharing, and I get first dibs at all your clients. Which we laugh about a lot. It sounds very dark and very in bad humor. And, after you've had a best friend die, things that were not funny can be funny.
So why do you still have a coach? You've been coaching for so many years. You've had a coach for so many years. You coach other coaches. Why do you still have a coach?
It's such a good question. Well, I believe in it, right? I really do believe in what Steve Chandler says. A coach without a coach is like a boat without a sail. Now, I say that does not mean, Ankush, I know plenty of fantastic coaches who are long running, who've taken breaks from getting coached, right? I'm not here to say you must have a coach 24/7 throughout your entire professional life. That being said, having a coach is really helpful. I mean, look, I went through a huge thing when Michelle passed away, right? My whole life got turned upside down, not just because she wasn't just my best friend who I texted with 16 times a day. She was my business partner. And I really went through a recreation of myself. Who am I without Michelle? What do I want our work to be now that she's not here? Having a coach through that, someone who knew me so well, who knew Michelle, was a game changer, right? So that was very important. In terms of the long haul, I really like having a coach. I like having someone to talk to about my business, about my life. I'm in the midst of something new now that I'm creating. So it's helpful to have someone to go, well, this is happening. I'm challenged by this. I just think life is better with a coach. So why not?
I really agree with that. And I think coaches, a lot of people say, well, this is kind of like multi-level marketing and you have all that hierarchy and all of that. But it's funny, often I find that the people who are the most critical of coaches hiring coaches have never had a really good coach. And someone asked me about this the other day. They said, how do you know when you've got a really good coach? And I said, because you don't ask that question. You just know. And I had a coach years ago, and then when I got coaching from Steve, I was like, okay, there's a difference, and I'm sure your clients say that to you, and I've seen that, and that's kind of what I aim for with the standard of really being impactful. And I know there's, like you say, every day's a learning day, right? Every day's a school day. There's always room for improvement.
And I also think that it's very difficult to be a professional coach and not have experienced really one-on-one strong coaching. It's difficult to invite others into considering that and be effective at enrollment if you have not ever written a good check to a coach. I think it's very difficult. I know many people who have done groups and they've done all sorts of kinds of learning programs, and it's still different than having a one-on-one coach in your life. And especially if you're in the profession, to have done that, you can really have a better sense of what someone sitting across from you might be thinking about.
I want to open this up to questions. I know we've got a bunch of people online. I know you guys have all got questions, so please, comment. Caroline can't see them, but I'll read them out.
Great.
So we'll do that. So please let's make this interactive. I could carry on for the next half an hour easily, or 2 hours really, because I've got so many questions for you. But please comment and let us know. And in the meantime, I'm going to ask you one question.
Please.
You talked a lot about enrollment at the start of this call, and I know again that we could go on all evening around this. But give us some of the highlights. What were some of the things that you learned about enrollment when you started growing your coaching practice that you weren't aware of when you started out? What are some of the highlights?
I think, Ankush, it's a great question. One of the most important highlights for me was learning how to lead that conversation. So look, being with someone in an enrollment conversation, Michelle would say to people, that's where some of the most powerful coaching can happen, in the enrollment conversation. And for a long time, Ankush, I didn't really know what it meant to lead in that. Like, there is a leadership component in that we as coaches need to learn to become effective at enrollment. So that was a biggie. Like, what does that look like? What does leading that part of the process mean? I was very, look, for most people, it's uncomfortable. Most people collapse. They don't want to appear, they make up stories. I don't want to seem this. I don't want them to feel uncomfortable. And those thoughts don't serve when it comes to enrollment. That was a big highlight. And then the other one was being okay with not being great or perfect or good enough. It's fine. I made lots of mistakes. So a highlight was really starting to accept it's okay if I feel green and clunky. That person sitting across from me probably won't know. Is that helpful?
Yeah, it is, and I know this. So we just literally scratched the surface, and even those two things we could. We could. So if you want more, because I'll otherwise just take over the whole conversation. So if you're listening and you want more, and you want Caroline to explain either of those things, ask the question. Mate's got a question. How do we connect with people we don't know? And if you ask a question, please give as much context as you can. It will really help us. Now, I know Mate a little bit.
Okay.
He's a coach from Europe, and I believe, unless I'm getting him confused with someone else, he would like to work with people in business.
Yeah. It's a great question. And by the way, it's a question that so many coaches have. Like, in a way, I'm going to be funny in my answer, but I will then explain it. Like, in some ways, we can't connect with people we don't know, right? We don't know them. And, Steve Chandler is a voice in this profession for it's always going to be better to start with people you do know. Like, part of our job as professional coaches, some coaches have community in their lives, right? Maybe they're a parent and there's their children's school. Maybe they belong to a gym. Maybe they belong to some professional community. Our job as professional coaches, if we have no community, we do have to learn how to create one. And that can be literally I'm guessing Mate knows one person in business in his life, one person that he can build a connection with, right? Like, we have to start with one, not how do I meet people? It's like, do I know one person? I love that when I was starting out, Steve would constantly say to me and Michelle, whoa, you don't need 15 conversations. One. We start with one on our calendar and go from there. So I always encourage coaches who are I don't know anybody. I'll be like, no, that's just not true, because you're a human being on the planet. Let's talk about who you do know. And really baby steps, like, who do you know? And if we really don't know anyone, then we want to be in the game of, How am I going to connect into communities? Where can I go to meet people where I can be real and make real conversation?
And I know you really model this because you wanted to work with women, and I think you guys, I can't remember, it was your house or Michelle's house, you had women just come to your house. Is that correct?
Exactly. Michelle, it was her house. She had a big family room. And Michelle, by the way, had a really strong community of parents she knew and other lawyers she knew. And she was really willing. The fun thing about doing something like we did complimentary events at her house. The great thing about a complimentary event, she was like, I'll invite anybody. I'll invite anybody. Our only guideline was that they be a woman for those events and that they seem like someone like she'd want to invite. There was not a high bar. So but we were enthusiastic, and enthusiasm really makes a difference. Michelle was like, she used to call herself the golden retriever of coaching. Isn't that great? Because she would be like, yeah, come, it's great. Oh, these women are like, people couldn't deny her enthusiasm. So that is a message for your community, Ankush. It's like our own enthusiasm for our work really matters. It really does.
I love that. And, I think that's so true in so many professions, right? Like you ask any employer, most of them will say the number one trait they look for in an employee is enthusiasm. And so we're our own boss and our own employee. So if we bring that enthusiasm to the work and enthusiasm to other people, it's infectious.
It is. And it's especially in this profession though, because people want more, right? In all of our worlds, people want more inspiration and enthusiasm, right? They're looking for it externally. That's just an error, right? Some people don't know yet that isn't within us, right? That inspiration is an inside job. But our enthusiasm is a big factor in drawing people to us as long as it's real. I don't want to manufacture enthusiasm. But we had complimentary events. We would do these days where we'd create a half day, free content, right? And we would come up with themes where we were like, creating, we had one day we would do, which was creating more balance in your life. Now it was a total smokescreen. And the moment women got there, we'd be like, surprise, that's a big smokescreen because there's no such thing as balance. But it was a thing people thought they wanted. Oh, I need more balance in my life. So we'd come up with these themes and create a half day, and we would just invite. Michelle would run into people at the grocery store. You should come. You should totally come.
So people could do that with anything, right? You could do it with mothers. You could do it with small business owners. You could do it with corporations. You could create something for people to attend.
And remember, Steve Chandler used to talk about how he would give talks at the library. Free talks, and 2 people would come. And what was so great about him, and is great, is he'll say, and those 2 people got a lot of value. And then they'd invite someone else. He didn't care. He didn't let 2 people get in the way of serving. Most of us would be like, oh no, 2 people, I failed.
Yeah, sometimes the smaller groups are just more impactful anyway.
Oh yeah, it can be. It's like we can make anything fabulous, and we can make anything. Michelle used to say to people, we can ruin anything. Because we're good at that, right?
Well, you're talking to a group of 3 principles coaches, so we all know the power of our thinking to create any kind of reality that we're living in.
Right.
Mate's come back. Thank you for the great simple answer. That is so helpful to remember. Great. I'm glad that was useful. Thank you, Caroline.
Good.
Sundance has got a question, and he's just replied. He goes, P.S. This is a hard question for me to ask. Okay, so he's saying, this is an awesome conversation. A question that's coming up for Caroline is, after working with the best in your field and in a place, mastery for so many years, what lights up your soul the most with the clients you serve?
What a great question. I love that. What lights me up the most? I mean, it's really no different than the beginning. I love I just had an initial call today with someone, with a man who's in a corporate environment, and he's really starting to wonder if there's something he's doing that's getting in his own way. And he had all these things to say about, in the 3P language, you can tell me if I'm getting this accurate, his thinking was really busy. He was like in the optics of how he's being seen, it was so fun, and it's still so fun for me to be like, wow, can we slow this down and just look at how you're thinking for a little while? Can we just talk about the thinking going on? Because we don't often do that, right? And it was so fun. And it's fun. I love getting to assist people in that, like, in just slowing down and going, could there be something else here that would be different, that would be meaningful? And what lights me up is people who want to learn and grow. Like, that excites me. It excites me that at the end of our call, he was uncomfortable. And what I loved, I'd never had anyone say this. I'm sure everyone will love hearing this. I said to him, what if you played with just being, what would it look like to be 5% more playful or flexible in your thinking? Like, are you willing to be with that between now and when we next talk? What would it look like to be 5%? And he got very quiet. He was like, okay. It's uncomfortable, but okay. And I said, well, is there anything else we can talk about today? He goes, no, I think I need to go take some Advil and go for a walk. I was like, this is fantastic. I've never had anyone say at the end of talking to me, I need to go take some Advil. And it was fabulous. Like, he was so willing. Like even though it was uncomfortable, I just loved that he was courageous. And that's what I love. That's what lights me up, is when someone is courageous enough to be like, maybe there's possibility here. Maybe.
I love that. And, I found myself saying more and more to people when they've asked me about coaching or how it works and does it really work and is transformation guaranteed? And Steve told me this. There's only two things that I needed. One is to stay open, and two is to stay on the path.
Yep. Oh, that's my favorite thing for coaches, Ankush. It's like, I think this, I'm in the midst of like this development of this school. And one of the things I'm talking about with coaches is this idea of don't lift your head up. Michelle and I used to say that to coaches, and I still do with coaches I work with. Like, are you willing to work at this for a year without looking up every week and going, is it working? Is this working? Like, are you willing to keep your head down in the game for a full year and not go, let me check. Is it working? Is this going to work?
Helen's got a cultural question. Is Advil a painkiller?
Yes. It's like headache medicine.
Yeah. Okay. I think we call it paracetamol or.
I love it. I'm so sorry. That was my bad. Yes. It's not it's not like, it's certainly not, high pain meds. It's like headache medicine.
Yeah. Thank you. No, thank you for asking, Helen, because we've got a mixture of people from all over in this group. So thank you for that. And Sundance says thank you as well. I love what you just said about just sticking with it for a year and not looking up, because that's so true.
It really is.
And I've seen my journey being a lots and lots and lots of little steps. There's very few like jumps and like, oh, okay, now I've made a big jump. It's kind of lots of little steps. And then I look back and I go, oh, I've come quite a long way now.
Isn't it amazing?
To, X amount of time ago.
Completely.
Okay. Apparently Martine tells us it's ibuprofen. So that's the technical term. So Advil. So now we know.
Phew. Well, glad we got that handled.
Absolutely. All right. We've got about 20 minutes left. If anyone else has got any questions for Caroline, now's your opportunity. Now's your chance to ask it. If not, I've got tons of stuff.
Please.
One of the things that you talked about when I heard you speak was about Island A versus Island B, and I know you haven't got a whiteboard or something behind you, but could you talk a bit about that? Because I think that
Yeah.
could be really useful.
So let's slow that down. So for your people, so we're clear, this is something that you can do inside of an enrollment conversation where you start to slow it down and you create this idea that you can draw on a whiteboard, which is like, here's island A. This is your current life. And then here's island B, which is, in my words, like, what is life the way you always wished it would be? So when I'm with someone new in an enrollment conversation, we can start to build out island A, and that can look like, tell me what your current life is like. Like, give me a day in your life. Another way I've talked about it with coaches is imagine here's a pie. So here's the pie you're currently eating. Let's look at the slices in the pie you're eating. Because we all have slices in our life, right? Like maybe we have a job. Maybe we have family. Maybe we have spiritual connection, if that's important to someone. Maybe we have creative expression. Maybe we have physical health. Like we have pieces of our pie. And so I want to hear from someone, tell me about the pie you're eating in your life right now. Let's look at each slice. And then I want to find out, how are those slices going? Like, is your family slice, is it working? How are your relationships? I want to kind of get a sense of how's this pie? And I like talking about it like pie because who does not like pie? Like really. If you don't like pie, maybe we shouldn't even talk. I don't know. You could call it cake. But so then there's this pie, which is like, what would this pie include that this pie doesn't have? Like lots of people, I don't know about for you, Ankush, but sometimes people are like, oh, I wish my pie had a relationship, a partner. Or I wish my pie had a job I liked. Or I wish my pie was more, maybe it's more internal. I wish some people who actually know there's an inner life, they might be like, I wish I felt better waking up in the morning. I wish I had an experience in my pie of more love. So I want to get a sense of, here's your current pie, and what's the pie you wished you'd always had? And our job as the coaches is to start to see if they can even talk about the pie they want. Some people can't even talk about it, right? They're constantly in what they don't like. They have no ability to talk about pie that they might want. So I start to even talk about that. I'll be like, wow, have you noticed that as I ask you questions about what you'd like in your life, it doesn't seem like it's a question that's easy for you to answer. And sometimes they go, oh my God, you're right. I don't even know. And sometimes they'll be like, oh, I know what I want in my pie, but it's all external. There's no inner reference. So this conversation that you and I are talking about, Ankush, we call the gap conversation, right? We're starting to look at the gap in a person's life. And then, so here's my current island. Here's life the way I always wished it would be. And there's this gap. And in my experience, if an enrollment conversation goes really well, the person sees the gap. They go, oh my God, there's this gap. And then they go, wow, you really seem like you could help me get there. Mm. It's like Michelle used to describe it as the coach is the boat. We're the boat that gets someone from this island to this island.
Yeah. I think that's such a key skill of of enrollment, and also understanding what the profession of coaching is all about. You know, and I think that's something that as three principles coaches, a lot of us forget that, you know, people are paying us not to learn about the three principles most of the time. They're paying us because they want to go from where they are, their current experience of life, to a different experience of life. That's what they're paying for.
Period. For everybody. And that's true in my world. Like nobody, like not that I don't ever call myself, like my training was in the principles and practices of spiritual psychology, but I don't care if someone ever learns that. It doesn't matter. My job is to be like, can I assist them in creating a different experience for themselves inside and out? And if they learn the principles and practices or 3P along the way, great. But that's not the job. Exactly.
Yeah, I totally agree. We've got a couple more questions.
Please.
Helen's asking, do you describe yourself as a life coach, Caroline, when you meet someone who doesn't know you?
I kind of, yes. My short answer is I'll say to people, I'm a life coach, I'm a business coach. That's pretty much what I say. I've never come up with a fancy answer. I just am like, yep, that's what I do.
Yeah. Me too. I had a taxi driver ask me what I did the other day, or I was on my immersion, and I said I'm a life coach, and he kind of went, "Pfft," like, he was really dismissive. He goes, well, tell me what you do then. Do you solve people's problems? And I went, well, tell me what's going on in your life. And I literally had 3 or 4 minutes, and he was telling me about his dad died, and then how his sister was trying to take the inheritance, and how he lost his job. And within 3-4 minutes, I just kind of told him about how, the way he's thinking about it is going to have an impact. It was like something really small, and then he dropped me off and he went, that was really helpful. So I agree with you. I think a lot of coaches get caught up in describing, I'm a positively and mindful, I don't know, like they make up these funny names and it doesn't mean anything anyway. So
I had someone in the coaching program at USM. I did love this one. Although I couldn't see saying it, she said, I'm a human lie detector. And I help you uncover the lies you're telling yourself about your life.
Oh, that is good.
It is good, but I couldn't imagine walking around in the world saying it.
Yeah.
But I thought it was fantastic.
Okay, I'm writing that down. Maybe I might play with it. Who knows?
All right.
Might throw it out once or twice. Lindsay's got a great question. What would you say makes an awesome coach?
It was funny because as you were talking, Ankush, I think about your cab driver, I thought, well, look, one of the other things we do as coaches is we create containers in which people can be heard. Sometimes for the very first time in their lives. So to me, one of the qualities of an awesome coach is someone who really knows how to listen deeply. Like in a way beyond any way you've ever been listened before. It's like listening is so rich. So much can happen just by listening. So that's one thing that makes an awesome coach to me. Another thing is an awesome coach is someone who's willing to share the truth as they see it. Now I want to distinguish here. I'm not a fan of here's the truth. I'm right. More like here's the truth that I see. Like I'm willing to say to a client, even if they might not like it, something I'm noticing about them. I'm not invested in my clients liking me. I'm willing to sacrifice that in the name of sharing something that maybe nobody else has been willing to say to them. That to me is part of being an awesome coach, that I'm willing to say what's coming forward for me in service to the person, even if it's not going to be comfortable.
Yeah, I just seen that Amir Karkati's joined. I don't know if you know him, but he and I are doing a little program for coaches, and this is something that he's been talking about quite a lot, about just saying things that are obvious, saying things that are just really that you see, but not holding yourself back from saying it. And
if I'm with someone and I'm thinking things that I'm not saying, I know that I'm not on my game.
I love that. Both of those things. One of creating that container of safe space, and also just telling the truth. I don't know what book it was from. I think it was Patrick Lencioni, one of his books, where he talks about telling the kind truth.
I love that. I love that.
And it's just, it's not about, hey, this is what I really think of you, but there's love behind it. There's service behind it.
I think obviously to me, and this is something they say at the University of Santa Monica, that loving is the transformational agent. There's no technique. There's no anything greater than the power of just our own loving. That's it.
I love that. That's something that we probably hear in so many different guises from so many different spiritual teachers and coaches, across the board.
Absolutely.
Sundance asked a question which I don't know if we can answer, but I'm gonna put it out there anyway because he's asked it. Is spiritual psychology three principles, or is there a difference? I don't know enough about spiritual psychology to answer that. I don't know if you know enough about 3Ps to answer that.
Exactly. Here's what I've been told. There's crossover. And one of the biggest crossovers between spiritual psychology and 3Ps is an acknowledgement that we're divine beings. That we are divine beings having a human experience. So that's a big crossover, right? I think someone told me this, and I think there's truth to this. I think I went to a training with George and Linda, so I wouldn't say I'm immersing myself in 3P, but I'm learning more and more. So I can't answer this definitively. But someone said to me that who's both a USM graduate, spiritual psychology, and is now fully immersed in 3P. And she said to me, it's about 80% the same and 20% different. And I think the main difference, Ankush, for your people is that in spiritual psychology, there's more, let's call it, tools that we use in service to ourselves and others. And my understanding of 3P is that there doesn't need to be a tool. Like our own awareness around our own thinking can be enough. And that's beautiful. There's a lot of beautiful things that are total crossovers, and some of it is all just said in different ways.
Yeah. I think that's a really great answer. I really like that. And we're getting loads of love hearts flowing across the screen, which you can't see, I think, from maybe your answer to the previous question about coming from a place of love. And I love it. And maybe this is something I should say that, when I first got into coaching, I heard that, USM was really this 2-year spiritual psychology master's program. It was kind of very high end. And I've met a number of USM grads over the years and who are coaches who are really, they've got something about them, they've done, a lot of work, if you like. I don't know if that's the right word, to get to that place. And what I love is so many of them are coming over to 3P too. And what I see is that, coming back to something you said earlier on in this profession, personally, your spiritual journey is your spiritual journey. But as professionals, I think our job is just to help people. And so, one of the things I'm so glad that I'm working with Steve is that because he's not 3P through and through,
right?
He helps keep my, and I am like, I'm really like 100% 3P, but he helps me keep my mind open to anything and everything that's going to help my client.
Yes. I think what you're saying is so important, Ankush. One of the things I say to coaches is I see it as our responsibility to be versatile. I don't want to be so married to any approach that I can't be versatile to serve people. Like, I don't need it to be my way. I don't need it to be spiritual psychology or 3P or Byron Katie. I want to help create something that will help someone. And I'm willing to do all sorts of things in the name of helping someone.
Yeah, I love that. And I see that similarity across all great coaches. And, there's many ways to crack a nut, as they say.
Exactly.
And I think when someone hires me, they're really hiring me to help them. So, I can think whatever I want, and I love that, that they don't think the same as me always, right. Most of the time they don't. Who does think the same as us all the time? And so it really helps me to get creative sometimes. Because that's the fun of the profession. Like, if I just showed up and said the same thing to every client, I would get so bored.
Right.
Like,
true. And we'd get bored if we thought that it should always look a certain way.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to squeeze in one more question. Helen's got a great question because I really like this. Any pointers on introducing the spiritual to a client
Oh,
who's unaware of any spiritual aspect.
yeah, that's a great one. People asked us this all the time at the University of Santa Monica when we taught the coaching program. My answer to this is pretty specific. What I ask people in an enrollment conversation is, and I do it like I'm asking about the weather. I'm like, do you have any spiritual connection or anything you focus on in that arena? I want to first see. And if they're like, well, no, not really. I go, is that of interest to you? Like, is that something that seems important? And if they go, no, I go, okay. If they go, yes, then we go further. Tell me more. Like, what's important to you about that? I don't want to assume it's important. I don't want to assume that I know what that means. And when someone says no, like, oh no, here's what I know. They don't have to. There's no requirement that anybody know, like, oh, I need to be on a spiritual path. Because the truth is, if I'm helping someone grow in their own ability to love themselves and others, that's the same. It's the same. I don't care whether someone's like, I'm on a journey to find spiritual bliss, or whether someone's like, I just want to have a better relationship with my husband. Because it all comes back to love. And that's what's spiritual. Love. Loving.
Yeah, I love that. I had a client many years ago, and he's like, I don't want anything spiritual. Don't give me any, like, he was a businessman.
I love that.
And, he contacted me because I knew him years ago, and he said he saw a video of mine. He knew me before I became a coach, and we'd kind of lost contact, and he saw it on Facebook, and he's like, you just seem really happy with yourself. You seem just like there's something different about you. I want that. Can you give me that? And I said, great. And I started talking, and I must have said something. And he went, no spiritual stuff. I went, okay.
That's right. My favorite.
Right. And I love what you said is like, we don't need to say it. The funny thing was, as I coached him, I kind of snuck in. I gave him a load of books, and I snuck in a spiritual book. Some people in this group may know it, Island of Knowledge by Linda Quiring. It's a super hippie, super spiritual book. It's like the first book written about the principles. It's written in the 70s. Oh, wow. And he loved that book more than any other book.
See?
And I remember Dickens saying that when he works, Dickens Bettinger, I don't know if you know him, but when he works with companies, he said, I just talk to them. And he goes, they'll kind of eventually go, hey, this is kind of spiritual, isn't it? They'll almost like whisper it. And he said, if they do, I just say, yeah. But he doesn't need to bring that up.
Right. It's like we don't have to have any agenda. We just don't.
We're getting so many more love hearts again, Caroline. I wish you could see all the love hearts flowing across.
I love that. That makes me so happy.
Helen said it. Thank you, very helpful. Billy saying yes, it's all about the love. We're pretty much coming up to time. It's 9:00 now. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. I literally could have spoken for another 2 hours. We barely scratched the surface, but I'm so glad we managed to get you on here. If people want to find out more about you, I know you're running a coaching school, and I know you work with coaches. If people resonate with you and they want to find out more, how can they do that?
My website, CarolynFreyer-Jones.com. In that website is the link to my coaching school that's starting in January, but there's lots of free content. So I'm for forwarding the profession of coaching. Of course, I want people to come to my school, but what's more important is that we make this profession is great, and we can all do our part to grow it and make it better. So my website is CarolynFreyer-Jones.com, and my name, because Ankush, you use Caroline. It's spelled Carolyn. So it's Carolyn Freyer, Freyer Jones, CarolynFreyer-Jones.com. And my school, you'll see the link, is CFJ Coaching School. It's my initials, CFJ. And there's lots of free content. And anybody who wants can get on my mailing list. You can go there and ask to be on it. And I'm sending out lots of free content. I have an ebook. I'm all for let's give each other stuff and help each other grow our businesses.
Yeah, we are very much kindred spirits, and that's why I asked you to come on, because I know that's really where you come from. You come to help, you come to for the professional coaching. I coach coaches, but if people hire you and it helps them, I'm for that, because I'm a strong believer in the world could really do with more really great coaches. And thank you so much for modeling, telling the kind truth and picking up my deliberate mistake of pronouncing your name wrong.
Oh, no. And what I want to say, I love it, and I have no problem with it. But I want to say something, because Ankush, to me, we all need to know there are infinite clients. Infinite. Like there's 8 billion people on the planet. So there's infinite clients to serve. And that's why we can be generous, right? Like that's what I appreciate about you, Ankush. And I so appreciate that you do this. And I'm a huge fan of yours. I'm a fan of, I want to see coaches thrive. And that means this idea that's circulating in our world of like, no matter what your training is, it's hard. It doesn't have to be. There's work, but it doesn't have to be hard.
Absolutely. No, I really appreciate you saying that. And, check out Carolyn's website. I'll put the link into the group. Thank you once again so much for being with us, and hopefully we can do it again someday.
I would love to, Ankush, and I hope you have a great night. And to everybody out there, it was so fun to get to hear your questions. Thank you.
All right, take care.
All right, see ya.